Welcome back to the Blister and Muck podcast. I'm Jenny Mason, your host and the creator of the Blister and Muck series. This episode is so dangerous, we hired sister stunt doubles named Kate and Duplicate. We also have backup dancers, Anna 1, Anna 2. When we left off, Blister and Yana had stumbled directly into Dr. Van Sangfreud's sinister laboratory. Not only that, Blister was caught inside an electrified trap. Prior to this catastrophe, Blister tried to warn Yana that Mrs. Chettingley and Vexler Q. Drummel were traitors serving the imposter doctor. But Yana didn't fully heed the alarm. Have you ever tried to warn someone that they were hanging out with backstabbers? That the people they think are friends are actually traitors? Has anyone ever tried to warn you that perhaps some of your so-called friends were not trustworthy? Did you listen to that warning? Perhaps you didn't even need that warning because on some level, the traitor triggered your not-to-be-trusted instincts. I know I have experienced all of those things. When I sounded the alarm bells to friends who befriended traitors, my warnings went ignored. When friends tried to warn me I was connected to untrustworthy rascals, I turned an equally deaf ear. And I have also completely ignored my own instincts about the dishonest people lurking in my circles. And I can't help but wonder, why? Why do we ignore the warnings? Why do we associate with deceitful individuals even when we know we're going to wind up hurt by them somehow at some point? The whole conundrum makes me think of mushroom foraging. The world contains billions of mushroom varieties, but only a small fraction have been scientifically identified and documented. Expert mycologists, or people who study mushrooms, go foraging for new, exotic, or undiscovered species. More casual mushroom fans typically hunt for the most delicious edible mushrooms, like the honeycombed morels or the citrus-scented chanterelles. However, both the experts and the amateurs have to be precise when gathering mushrooms because many a commonly known mushroom has an almost identical twin version packed with poison. For instance, the chanterelles twin is the jack-o'-lantern mushroom. Both are bright orange and they share similar shapes, but a much closer examination of their features reveals some key differences. Chanterelles have white flesh under their orange skin, while the jacks are orange through and through. Chanterelles have ridges branching from their stems that seem like gills, but aren't. Jack-o'-lantern mushrooms have actual paper-thin gills. A mushroom forager must pay close attention to these differences, or else she may wind up eating a toxic treat. While the list of characteristics distinguishing chanterelles from jack-o'-lantern mushrooms is long, other varieties diverge only slightly by smell or by the display of some minute and temporary feature. Other types are so identical, one requires a microscope to tell them apart on a cellular level. And so mushroom foragers do not identify mushrooms based solely on how they look. They verify dozens and dozens of features because mistakes with mushrooms are deadly. And I would argue that mistakes in friendships are equally dangerous. The toxins we can be exposed to through deceitful people are deadly to our hearts and souls. So why aren't we as selective with friends as mycologists are with mushrooms? Why aren't we more scrupulous? And if scrupulous is a new word for you, it refers to paying attention to details. Scrupulous comes from an old word for a small, sharp rock in your shoe. When we feel a scruple jab our tender feet, we instantly take off our shoes and shake out the problem. Why don't we do the same when we experience a figurative scruple that jabs our conscience? Why do we ignore the scruple that is warning us a person we're trusting is ultimately unreliable? Why have stunt doubles instead of genuine friends? Or here's another way of looking at it. Why do we insist on eating the jack-o'-lanterns when the forest is so full of genuine chanterelles? Episode 5, A Stunt Double. Blister tussled, kicked, punched, and bit at the cat cyclone. Their claws stung like wasps. Their teeth pricked like thorns. The caged animals fueled the melee. As they screeched, yelped, or barked, someone shouted, "Activate the neurocognitive parencial serum extractor." While trapped at the center of a cat hurricane, the command sounded like gibberish to Blister. At last, the cats pinned Blister's arms, legs, and tail to the floor. Pinching his appendages in their mouths, the cats hefted Blister off the ground. A lab assistant slid a sheet of glistening metal mesh over his wriggling shadow. The pale metal dulled and then disappeared as it mimicked the wood grain of the dance floor. "No! No!" Blister yelped. The cats dropped him onto the IncarceRATor trap. The magnetized metal boxed itself around him. One of the lab ladies stacked Blister atop the other caged creatures. Blister searched for Yana. Had she also been captured and caged? No doubt Dr. Van Sangfreud was one step ahead of them. But as far as Blister could see, Yana was nowhere in the room where the lab ladies flurried into action. They swarmed around the contraption and flipped its switches, turned dials and knobs. The cats dispersed to help, which mostly involved rubbing along everyone's ankles and tangling themselves between any and all rushing feet. Among the cat pack, Blister recognized Tabby and Slackjaw, the fake doctor's favorite hench cats. Dread dropped on Blister. He was trapped in the room he had seen from the library window. It was the room where sputtering trucks made daily deliveries to the castle. It was the very ballroom laboratory where Ooze and Horchata had been addled. The lab assistants unbolted old cables and tubes from the ports on the machine, replacing them with fresh equipment. Last of all, they connected wires from the contraption to a funnel topping a glass jar. Blister shoved at the creases of his cage. He was determined to pry it open. "No use, no use," a hound dog howled. "These traps are unbreakable." "Doomed," a raccoon twittered. "We're all doomed." "There's gotta be a way out," Blister said. "Aye, 'tis a way," said a cormorant. "Once they're done zapping the smarts out of ya, they blast you senseless and pitch you away." "You weren't all captured here in the city, were you?" Blister angled skeptical glances at a capybara, a wallaby, and a lemur. "Course not, mate," the wallaby supplied in an accent built on wide A's. "Some of us were traded on the black market, brought here by some shaggy bloke with a limp." "Vexler." Blister ground the name between his back teeth. He regarded the other animals, searching for the right ally. To the rhino he shouted, "Hey you, big guy!" The rhino did not lift his lolling head or watery eyes. He merely craned his little flower cup of an ear.
"Are you from the zoo? Do you know Orville?"
The rhino perked up.
"If I get you out of that cage, what are the odds you can smash through that wall?"
Blister indicated the exterior wall with the bricked-over windows. "Quiet down," a lab lady scolded. Tabby and Slackjaw scurried over to the cages. They hissed the creatures into an obedient silence. Blister resumed ramming his shoulder at the trap's edges. He struck with enough force to nearly tip the cube over onto its side. He seized the idea to repeatedly knock it over, essentially roll away in a square wheel. For that scheme to succeed, he would have to disconnect the trap from the battery. He groped for the wires, intending to get them anywhere near his powerful teeth. Tabby pounced. Blister got his arm back in the mesh box just before the cat could claw it off. The door to the stairwell boomed open, jolting everyone in surprise. Dr. Van Sangfreud sloped into the room. He wore his usual gray suit and hat. He carried his usual silver cat-head cane. The cats mauled his shins with their curling, coiling, rubbing, and meowing. "Hello, my beautifuls, my kitties, my itty-bitties, my itty-bitty kitty committee." He directed his mineral blue gaze at Blister. "So at last we meet in person?" As the doctor tapped his way closer to the cage, Blister scrutinized those blue eyes. He found no trace of the wild and crazed fog he'd seen when the doctor pretended to be doddering and senile. "You will, of course, remember me from the train station? You saw me steal the Westinghouse?" Dr. Van Sangfreud pointed to the generator with his cane. "To carry out my experiments, I needed more power than the city could provide. So I distributed all those lion-washing invitations to lure everyone away from the train station, get them looking elsewhere. But then you showed up with that bear."
"Grr."
"What?"
"Nothing."
The doctor considered pressing Blister for more information about the bear, but then moved on. "A couple of my kitties saw you among the operatives at the circus." He nodded to Tabby and Slackjaw, who both swelled with smug pride. "I trust their report because even though you didn't know it, they have tailed you around the city for months. Actually, all my kitties have been hard at work shepherding rats to my traps. And when no rat would tell me where Madame Putresca housed her animal menagerie, I decided to trap my own animal menagerie. I enlarged the Incredible IncarceRATors into impressive imprisoners and turned my search into a lucrative business. I see no end to my mind's creative abilities." The doctor chuckled, delighted by his own resourcefulness. The chuckling escalated into laughter. The doctor laughed so hard, he leaned on his cane with both hands. In that hunched and shaking position, Blister recognized attributes of the barmy old man who shuffled around the house. What an actor this scoundrel was!
Care to share the joke?
Blister said. Actually, I do. I have been aching to share this joke ever since I devised it. The doctor snapped his fingers to summon a lab assistant. He handed her his hat and cane. Then he stood upright and performed an exuberant tap dance. Tip-a-tap-tap-tap. Blister yawned. He already knew the old fellow didn't need the cane. He'd seen him sprint away from Gorgeous George and the circus elephants. You still don't get it, the doctor said. He sighed, then rolled up the corner of his mustache and slowly peeled it off. He did the same with his bushy eyebrows and the goat beard on his chin. Then he pulled at the bald wig scalp atop his head. The skin and tufts of white hair slid off the old man's head and plopped into the lab lady's outstretched hand. Blister fell back against the metal mesh, his knees reduced to baker's flour. Yana stood before him, clad in a gray suit. She looked just like her mother, disguised by costumes in all those vaudeville posters hanging upstairs. She grinned. Now I see you get it. A sour, dark spot formed inside of Blister. It was the kind of spot that turned a fresh, ruby raspberry into mold fuzz. When he could speak, he said, You dress up and pretend to be Dr. Van Sangfreud, but not an authentic copy, some twisted version of the once great animal scientist. It's true, Yana said while loosening the cravat under her collar. My research always differed from my father's. He limited his studies by focusing only on animal behavior. I saw the real potential in their intelligence. Blister latched his arms across his chest. But your theories weren't good enough to get you into a university. So instead of being a real doctor, you masqueraded around as one instead. His habit of provoking bullies until they erred was instinctual. It had always worked on Scab. Yana swooped at the cage. She pressed her knurled face against the mesh and seethed. My theories are sound. Those idiotic universities would have rewarded every ounce of my research had it come from a man's brain. Oh, and this whole time, you've been on the warpath to prove your theories right, Blister said. Yana grinned. She backed away from the cage and shed the gray wool jacket. The lab assistant carried away the costume pieces. Blister continued taunting while she unbuttoned and rolled up the cuffs of her white shirt. You've set your clever traps around the city. You stole an electric generator, a horse from the police, a rhino from the zoo. You almost stole a panther from the circus. Oh, I'll get that panther. My orbs are taking care of that as we speak. That's right. Your adorable little lady army. Yana and all the lab assistants daggered Blister with icy stares. What? Don't be mad at me. Blister held his paws in mock surrender. None of this was my idea. I would have told you the world could not be taken over by a coot in a suit and her petticoat patrol. Yana snatched up the cathead cane and leveled it at him. She resembled a sorceress ready to hex him with her magical staff. You dare to underestimate us like everyone else? Be careful, rat, or I'll have you exterminated. Blister pantomimed a terrified cower. Have me exterminated? Oh no!
Does that mean you'll summon your henchman, Vexler Q. Drummel? A broken down circus clown? Now I'm really scared.
Blister transformed the cower into knee-slapping laughter.
Oh, and the world should especially fear that barmy old vagrant who shuffles around this dump. Tie some rags to his feet, and then all of you can sweep the world clean.
Blister took hold of an imaginary broom and pretended to sweep. The women clustered around his cage, twittering with discontent. As Blister hoped, Yana whacked the cage with the cat cane. He flattened out, expecting the metal to buckle and break open. At last, his chance to escape. Ticks and maggots! Blister made a huge mistake when he put any faith in Yana van Sangfreud. All along, she's been a bad mushroom. She's totally untrustworthy. She's got low moral standards. She's nothing but a criminal. She leads a life of criminy crickets. I'ma need a minute to figure that pun out. Tune in next week to find out if Blister escapes from that incredible IncarceRATor trap. Although, I'm not sure how much that helps. He still needs to escape from the lab and alert the police. Maybe he carries a portable phone. In the meantime, visit blisterandmuck.com and use the contact form to tell me what you think will happen next. Know any mushroom or fungus jokes better than these? Where do baby mushrooms come from? From their mommy's mushroom. Why is it hard to have a conversation with a lady mushroom? Because she talky too much. Why do mushrooms make music in the D major key? Because they're decomposers. How do you distinguish an edible mushroom from a poisonous mushroom? Tell a stranger, "Here, eat this." My producers are warning me that these jokes are in poor taste. I disagree. I believe they have so much room for improvement. Subscribe to the show at blisterandmuck.com and you'll receive an email alert as soon as the newest episode releases. Oh, and in case you hadn't heard, the holidays are not canceled this year. Odds are good you won't have pandemic lockdowns as an excuse to not buy anyone any gifts this year. Don't get caught empty-handed at the last minute and assume that passing out pet rocks will save you. Instead, get your holiday gifts from the Blister and Muck gift shop. There's high quality, made in the USA hats, t-shirts, sweatshirts, and yes, even face masks. All in a wide array of colors to suit your colorful friends and family members. A portion of your purchase helps cover the costs of sound effects, web hosting, music, and more. And enclosed in your gift bag is a special surprise from the entire Blister and Muck crew. Another rat-tastic way to support the show is to give it some stars or a positive review on whatever app or platform you use to listen along. Reviews and likes help other listeners discover the show and join in this madcap caper. Special thanks to Roland Rudzitis for serving up the Blister and Muck theme song. Additional music from John Bartman, Kevin MacLeod, and Mon Plaisir. Cat tussles from E.B. Crosby and Sounds Exciting. Daniel Simon brought the guinea pig and the gibbon. Carolyn Ford squawked the peacock. Erdy honked the camel. Electric generator and electrical contraption sounds from Construct a Beat, Gran Torino 551, Waker 1, Zot 820, and Napro 1. IncarceRATor trap, clang, creak, and smash sounds from Mickey Man 5000, Fianced, and Reckless Goomba. Yummy 9987 boomed the door open. Thanks to Johnson Brand Editing for the wicked laughter. All other sounds from the public domain. This show would not be possible without the constant cheering I get from my family, friends, and fans. One for one, and all for you.